my very work ethic, my very showing up, my very dependability and acting in the capacity that I was capable of made my pathway, not because I was burning bras, beating people.
Welcome to Game Recognizes Game, brought to you by AposHealth. So you want to talk about greatness? You want to talk about changing the game that you're in? But then you have to talk about the legendary Dr. Vonda Wright, who is a trailblazing, nationally renowned orthopedic and sports medicine surgeon. And after over 3 decades of practice, she has dedicated her life to the science of longevity, but also debunking any myths that we have to slow down as we get older. And today she's also a global thought leader on all things women's health. She is candid, she is authentic, she is awe-inspiring. Let's go. Game Recognizes Dr. Vonda Wright. I love profiling individuals that are changing the game that they're in. But it's a rare day indeed when you get to sit down with someone who has changed the game multiple times across multiple platforms, all in one career. And that is who Dr. Vonda Wright is. A renowned sports orthopedic surgeon, a published researcher, a published author 5 times with her 5th book coming out later this year, Unbreakable. But now, a global thought leader on the science of aging, the science of longevity, and all things women's health. She has dedicated her life to using science to break down any myth that as we age, we have to slow down. Guess what? We don't. It is my honor and privilege to welcome Dr. Vonda Wright.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. So before you were a game changer, Vonda.
I've always been a game changer. I don't say so myself.
Absolutely have, and that's why you are here. And we talked about changing the game multiple times, but let's talk about little Vonda. Let's talk about growing up. Let's talk about where those seeds of passion, of drive, of dedication, where were they planted? How old were you? What were you doing?
So you know what, I come from a long line of brilliant women, and the older I have become, the more I reflect on what their lives must have been like, and truly how pioneering they were. So my grandmother was the eldest daughter of a ship's captain. Our family had homes in Hong Kong, and my great-grandfather, her father, was based out of Shanghai. And so if we go back to the turn of the century, China was rolling along and then Japan invaded, right? So at that time, there was a mass migration of young Chinese out of the country, and many of them came to settle in the Caribbean. And my grandmother and the man she was matched to settled in British Guyana, which is one of the 3 countries on top of Brazil. And it's considered the Caribbean, along with Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, where you will find many, many Chinese people, I think.
Cuba also.
My grandmother was one of those couples that migrated. Now, here's the interesting thing. My grandmother, because she was the daughter of a ship's captain, and because they owned at least 7 homes in Hong Kong, was a very privileged young woman. But then she was arranged to be married to some guy, my grandfather. It's okay. We're thankful for him. Brought to British Guyana, where she slaved the rest of her life.
Are they both Chinese?
Yeah. My grandparents are Chinese. Yeah. She comes from a house of privilege, matched to some guy she doesn't even know, brought to British Guyana, where she slaved for the rest of her life as they built businesses. They had a grocery store, they had a tavern, and my mother was the oldest of 10 children born to this woman in a country that was not her own. And so I grew up with my mother telling me stories of working in the grocery store, or something she hated more than anything, having to work in that tavern. Because I can only imagine being a beautiful young girl having to work in a tavern. I mean, I can imagine what she suffered through. So I grew up with those stories, and my mother was raised in British schools, so she's so brilliant. She can do math in her head. She knew all the Latin origins of all the words. She spoke French to me, and she would tell me to shut up in public in French so that none of the American women would know that she was telling her child to shut up, right? So there's my grandmother, right, with that story. And I never got to spend a lot of time with my grandmother, but when I did, when she finally came to this country, I just remembered how tired she was. And as she sat in the chair, she would always fall asleep. And I can identify with that because you met me during my fellowship, which was the last year of a long hike where I didn't sleep, right? And I would fall asleep anywhere.
We were young puppies.
Well, I wasn't so young, but I would still fall asleep anywhere. And so I could identify with how tired she was. And then, so that's my grandmother. And then my mother, she immigrated from British Guyana here to go to college. And the story goes that my father met her on campus and wanted to date her. And she's like, I came here for a BS, a bachelor's degree, not an MRS. And so there's just...
That's a t-shirt right there.
My mother in another generation would have been more successful than me. So when you ask me what drives me, I don't know any other way to be. I don't. I come from a long line of brilliant women and an equally hardworking father. So
they laid down the path.
I just don't know another way to be.
Trailblazers. And you don't have to be anyone but you. And
yeah.
But it's those seeds, you know. I love telling the story about my grandmother, who was a young widow, late 20s, early 30s, had nothing.
Yeah.
And she picked up from Colombia, South America, and moved to New York City.
Yeah. How brave was that?
By herself. I found the airplane manifest with her New York City address. She had a Chelsea, New York City address, sight unseen. And then after she got settled, she brought my mother and my sisters in.
Yes.
You know, and my grandmother, Rose, she was the best. She raised me. But without question, we've talked about this, strong women, that's my DNA. I was raised by four of them.
How lucky is Abby?
I hope
totally
so.
Trained.
I am well trained, 100%. My wife is a saint, but she also knows that mother, grandmother, and two older sisters. So where does science and medical school happen?
In the decades where I grew up, women were still really teachers and nurses, which is fine. But for smart kids in my small town in Fredonia, Kansas, which only had 2,500 people, smart kids were told, oh, aren't you going to be a doctor? And so, I don't know, okay, fine, I'll be a doctor. I didn't, you know.
That easy.
It was easy, but had I to do it again and knew the world of smart people professions, then I could have done many, many things. But I'm not unhappy that I've gone this pathway.
Well, as we know from medical school, and I know you also worked on oncology, right? And obviously orthopedic surgeon. You probably chose one of the hardest, professions within medicine, sports orthopedics.
Orthopedic surgery, you mean?
Orthopedic surgeon and specializing in sports because it was such a male-dominated profession. It still is.
It is.
But you decided, I'm doing this, and I'm going to bring my sledgehammer, and I'm going to break down some walls and barriers.
Well, you know what? It was never like that, Marty. I never came with a defiant attitude that I'm bringing a sledgehammer and break down walls. I am just, and I've accepted this, and I say this as a man would say it because I've lived with men in my profession so long. Women feel like they have to apologize for what I'm about to say, but men would say it clear out. And that is that I'm an extremely high capacity person. And it was never hard for me. So, and I feel like had I applied myself more, I would have done more, which sounds a little strange, but I say that to say, I never came with a sledgehammer. My goal was never to beat people down. My goal was to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And was it hard because I was the last class without a work hour restriction and I know there's 136 hours a week to work? Yes, that was hard.
You were the last class.
I was the last class. So just when you're a chief and you think you're going to dump it all on the juniors and it's going to get easy, the juniors get to go home and sleep at night, and the chiefs have to stay in the house, the hospital, as we call the house, because we live there, right?
That's right.
So, but you know what? So just to backtrack, it was never, my attitude was never raging with a sledgehammer to make a point. My very work ethic, my very showing up, my very dependability and acting in the capacity that I was capable of made my pathway, not because I was burning bras, beating people.
Yeah.
I don't think. So just to backtrack that.
Sure. But I do say that with the utmost respect, because what I'm saying is you chose sports medicine and orthopedic surgery, which had to be a passion just to even embark on that, like anything else.
Yeah.
And and then you enter this field that is, primarily, male.
Yeah.
And at a time when you probably had to prove yourself 10 times harder than anyone else.
When I was training, there were 3% women. Now there are 7%. Whoosh. Oh
my God. Is that
we
it?
had more than doubled, but we need another 50 years for parity. But I hear what you're saying, right? So yes, I'm a sports trained orthopedic surgeon. Not just a surgeon, though. There's a difference between being a sports surgeon who really just operates on sports things and a team doctor. I think true sports doctors, in the sense that you're talking about, are team doctors. So what that means for those people not in our field, it means that not only did I see patients in the day, do their surgeries, but I'm the one on the sidelines, rain, snow, sleet, with my teams. And sometimes it's very exciting. Listen, it is exciting and glamorous to run out of the tunnel into a screaming arena of 100,000 people onto the football field. Yes. So that part is fun.
No question about it.
I was just explaining this to a medical student today who thinks she wants to go into sports medicine, non-operative sports medicine. I said, the reality is the standing on the field for 3 hours in practice every night, the rain and shine, the so cold on the football field during a game that they have the heat jets to keep the players warm, and you stand in front of it, and the backside of you is burning, and you smell the burning clothing, and the front is so cold that you can't move your hands, right? So, I mean, that is but you know what? I think your question was, why sports? I was an athlete.
I'm actually meant to say a sports surgeon and orthopedic surgeon, because I know that your body of work with over 100,000 patients seen is all walks of life, all ages, of all different activity levels. And that brings me to another question. I've known you for a long time. You were still in your training, and I was, budding practice. And one of the things I said to myself as I got to know you is, man, she has zero tunnel vision. She treats the patient. She treats the entire person. And I saw you talk to patients about mental health or emotional health and the connection between the existing injury and short-term and long-term goals. And, it might seem like the world is ending now, but, we're going to get through this together. And that struck me, because this is a long time ago, 22 decades, 3 decades. And you were doing something that doctors today, medical professionals, don't have the time to do anymore.
Yeah, and I still do it the same way today. I treat the whole person. So, everybody listening has probably experienced the harsh reality of insurance-based care today, which means that insurance pays, I don't even want to tell you, it's frighteningly low. Business people are always appalled when I tell them how insurance and Medicare reimburse doctors, because what we don't remember is you may be paying me for the 20 minutes today, but what you're getting is my 22 years of formal education and 25 years of experience, right? It's as if you're paying for the top lawyer to defend you for your life. You are up against some kind of charge that's going to take your life away, and you want the best lawyer with the best experience, and you're going to pay that guy, gal, I don't know what you're going to pay them, $600, $1,000.
Top dollar, whatever it is, top dollar.
Huge retainers, right? People don't blink at that, but they don't realize that when a doctor is saving your life, or what I do, I gave 5 people today the ability to use their limbs again, whether they're using their limbs to work, to one guy I had, he just wants to lift better, and his form was so terrible before that he just jacked up his shoulder, and now he's going to heal, and then I'm going to teach him how to lift. Whatever they want to get back to, I think that the dilemma doctors have right now and become more technicians than they'd ever want to have been is because of the constraints of time. And so that's why you see many, many of the best doctors becoming concierge, or where I trained at Hospital for Special Surgery for many decades. They have been, we will take the very best care for you. We're the best in the world. And it is fee for service, right? Not being dependent on the decision-making of middle manager people using an algorithm.
That's right.
At an insurance company. And I think people deserve that kind of whole person care.
It's a monumental task to teach the average consumer about what is actually happening with the healthcare dollars.
People are appalled when, business people are appalled when I explain the model to them.
You know, it is, you know, we talk about a high touch, low volume model just to be able to survive and fuel our creed and our passion to put our hands on our patients and spend time with them. But the only model that is actually recognized is the low touch, high volume model.
But people crave the connection that you're talking about with someone, to see them and listen. You know, listen, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. You would not think people would be crying in my office, but because I sit across from them, we take the time. I just don't treat them like a shoulder. I treat them as a whole person. We are frequently reaching for the Kleenex box because people want to be seen and heard in the times when they're in pain.
That's right. And they just don't know that in today's healthcare, which we can talk about, it's just broken, beyond broken, when 80% of our $3 trillion budget in this country is spent in the last 2 years of life. That's appalling.
Well, it's appalling from the sense of economics, but what's more appalling is how appalling it is to the human condition, right? So I often tell the story, and we can just summarize it here, that when I have broken people, older people in a hospital bed, when I take call to fix fractures, which I still have to do at this late stage in my career, whether they're men or women. I mean, I'm thinking, I often tell the story of women, but last year I had a man who was, I can't remember what industry, but he was a titan of industry. And in the last 10 years, he had developed a chronic disease, a chronic cancer, which he did not die from, but it had left him completely debilitated. He had lost the 30, 50 pounds that you lose from what's called cancer cachexia. So he was very weak. But here's a titan.
A shell.
He's a shell. He's a titan. His mind was still good. He is not used to being like this. And then he fell and he broke his hip, and I had to fix him. So the hardest thing about what you just said, we spend the most money in the last few years of our lives, is that although his cancer was not preventable, probably, although we know that most cancers are preventable with lifestyle changes, we start very early, which we can certainly talk about. But many of the things we die from, the 33 chronic diseases that we die from, the number one of which is heart disease, is totally effing preventable, but not preventable if we start in our 60s and 70s. The die is cast, the cards are played. If we start in the critical decade, which I have named 35 to 45, when we've got a little, can I swear on your podcast?
100%. Let's fucking go.
Well, I'm a surgeon, it happens. 35 to 45, when we finally get a little bit of our shit together, right? We've at least been working a while, hopefully. We were working a while. Hopefully we have a place to stay before that's not our mother's couches. Although I would love if my children came home and stayed on I mean, they can live with it. Just so you know, people, you could live with me forever.
Anytime.
My children, please don't hear me say that. But anyway, you know what I mean? So by 35 to 45, the critical decade, even if we have totally blown it in our college years and we've lived every bit of life you ever wanted to squeeze out, that is the time to get our ducks in an order. Because if we course correct then, by the time we reach the end of our typical health span, which is 63, 63 is not so far away from my age.
Or mine.
Right. That is when
And my executive producer, Mark Nell.
health span ends, and we spend 3 days a week in a doctor's office. So listen, the tragedy in what you're saying of spending the most healthcare dollars in the last 2 years of our lives is a tragedy for the economy. It's a tragedy for the individual who thinks that we're going to have a huge wealth transfer in this country. I mean, we're about to have the huge wealth transfer. The women inherit all the money, but here's what I have to say about that. Women already live longer than men. We live 7 years longer than men, but we suffer for 20 years. And if we think that we're going to inherit all this money
And
and
use it for
live
20
long
years,
and
right?
prosper and travel the world, well, maybe you will if you inherit that much money. But the reality is that it costs $15,000 a month to live in a place where you can have assisted care because you're too frail to get up out of a chair. You've broken your hip. You have heart disease. You have a touch of dementia. This is the pathway that happens when we ignore reinvesting into our health, which we should start when we're 35 to 40. Now, listen, I'm not blaming anyone for not having made those choices. I mean, I can point to myself as someone who during menopause gained 30 pounds and then had to completely get back to the person that I was. I get it. But I think we completely and totally ignore the power of preventive health in this country. And the mere fact that 96 million people out of 230 million have pre-diabetes, which is a 70 to 90% chance guarantee of having diabetes in 10 years, which is a precursor of Alzheimer's. Come on, people, I don't know what you want. Do you want to live long and prosper? Or do you want to spend the last decade of your life suffering? Not me. Don't sign me up for that. So I get this passionate about it because I have looked into the eyes of 100,000 people. This is not theoretical to me. This is every person's life.
You've changed my life, and I've gone through your precision longevity program,
Yeah.
and it's changed my life. And I took it a few years ago, and just feel better. I feel younger, and I feel like that 40-year-old person. I feel better than I have in 2 decades.
Exactly.
It might be never too late. I mean,
No, it's
obviously
never
not
too
65.
late.
Obviously not 60, but
Even at 65, I have a girlfriend, and I've been showing her picture all around the world. People should go look her up. Her name is Susan Geedy. She's on Instagram. It's Kiki Mouse Gets Fit. Susan Geedy at 63 during COVID made a promise to God because her son, during March of COVID, when the country shut down,
5 years ago this week.
was stuck in Cuba. And he was going to get shut out of this country. And so Susan said, God, if you help me get my son out, I'm going to do something, and then I'm going to change people's lives. So God got her son out of Cuba before the shutdown so he could be in the States during COVID. She looked herself in the mirror, and she saw a 63-year-old that weighed 181 pounds. She's no bigger than me, really. 181 pounds. She didn't recognize herself. She's like, what the F have I let happen to me? So she, in 1 year, she lost 50 pounds doing everything I teach people to do. Now, she wasn't my patient at the time, but the principles are the same. She lifted heavy shit. She ate 1 gram of protein per ideal pound. She committed to herself knowing that she was worth it. And she became a bodybuilder competitively. And if you look at her pictures, I use that as an example that there is no age and skill level when your body will not respond to the strategic stress you put on it. It's harder when you start in a decrepit place, but it's never too late. But if I could just get the millennials to pay attention, and they are. I mean, they're easier than the Gen X's.
They like going to the gym. They like to work less. They might have something there, right? We don't know that.
I love some millennials. Don't let us not badmouth millennials.
Not badmouth. But we can talk about that too, in terms of work ethic and showing up and things like that. But
I love the concept of lifting heavy shit.
Let's talk about it.
You, in 2011, published a paper in Physician Sports Medicine, and you had a photo in there that has probably been clipped and copy and pasted millions of
Marty,
times.
You don't even know.
Oh, I know.
This thing is I should have named it.
Viral. Should have been your picture. And it talks about how we can save lean muscle. And you will describe it, but let me just set it up and tee it up for you. Vonda in her paper showed a 30-something-old triathlete, and then showed a 70-something-old, basically terminally ill individual.
Sedentary. They weren't even ill.
Sedentary. So basically, there's a cross-section of the MRI of a quad, a thigh muscle, young athlete, triathlete, sedentary individual in their 70s, cross-section of the thigh, and then a 70-year-old individual who was also a triathlete. And the 70-something person looked identical to the 30-something person. And that young lady is changing the fucking game, and you did that.
I did that in 2011. Well, I had a team, just to be fair. You know, all good scientists have a team. My team and I, it took a while to do that study. But you know, you're right. That picture was worth 1,000 words. So basically, for those of you trying to envision what he's talking about, it was a 40-year-old triathlete. If the 40-year-old was a flank steak, if you were cooking dinner tonight and you had the most gorgeous flank steak or filet mignon, right?
I get it.
Gorgeous.
Lean.
That is the 40 and 70-year-old triathlete. The guy in the middle who sat around for 35 years and didn't reinvest in his life, just got in his car, went to work, got up, came home, sat on the couch, looks like a effing rump roast. You'd never feed it to your family. You return it to your dog. You'd return it to the butcher like, what do you expect me to do with this? And that person, because we also measured strength, was very weak. That is the person who can't get out of a chair by themselves. You know, they're rocking back and forth to, you know, you've seen people trying to
reaching out to the relative or their kid.
Yeah. Can't get on the floor to play with their grandchildren. That's all they want to do. So let that never be me, right? People, the community that follows me on the internet right now is a little confused because, you know, when my work is chopped up into sound bites, people don't get the whole context. And so there was something where I was
unfortunate, the case with most social media.
That's true. I just need them to listen to the whole thing. Something I said was chopped up, and the sound bite is, we have to lift heavy, 4 reps, 4 sets, 3 times a week. OMG. All the people who know my work get what I'm saying because they've been with me quite a while. All the gym bros are coming out of the woodwork to tell me I don't know what the F I'm talking about. Where's the research? Well, number one, you got to do some fucking work yourself. Look it up yourself like I did. Number two, there's plenty of research. I am not the only one out there quoting the research to say that because I serve mostly, I serve in precision longevity, men and women who want to age better, feel better, look better. But in social circles, my biggest community is 35 to 65-year-old women. So when I say lift heavy, 4 reps, 4 sets, 3 times a week, I say that because in midlife women, when estrogen, which is the most powerful anabolic hormone, steroid. I mean, men make a lot of estrogen, but in women,
my wife would say the same thing about me.
No, but it's true. Men think testosterone and estrogen are not sex hormones. They're hormones, like thyroid hormone. They just act differently if you're XX or XY chromosomes. So for midlife women whose estrogen is waning, we do not have the anabolic stimulus to build muscle protein, we must lift differently. We must put down the mamby-pamby pink weights that gyms insult us with, that we lift 20 or 30 reps with, that we do the cute little classes with, and we do. Listen, if we really want to change the way we age, if we want to increase our longevity, if we want to age with power so that we can do what I want, when I want, when I want it, we have to lift in a way that builds power. And the way we do that is to stimulate our muscles
overload
to fatigue via progressive overload. So that's why when I say 4 reps, 4 sets, the range is really 3 to 6. But come on, Marty. People do better when you don't give them a range. Tell them what to do.
Spoon feed them.
When to do it. So I chose 4 because I do 4. It means that at the end of 4 reps in my bench, in my pull-up, my deadlifts, my squats, I do 4. I can probably squeeze out 1 rep in reserve, but I can't do 6 because it's heavy enough.
That's the right load.
That is the right load for me, right? So
let me stop you there for 1 sec, because everyone has their right load.
it's their own heavy.
It's their own heavy.
Right. Your
Yeah.
Another person's heavy might be 60 pounds.
That's right.
It might be the bar because you're starting out. And then you progressively overload and you build, right? And so that's what I mean when I say put down the light weights, because at this stage in life, we are not lifting for endurance. We are not lifting for hypertrophy. For hypertrophy, you lift more reps, lighter weight. For endurance, you lift the lightest weights for reps and reps and reps. But in midlife, both men and women are lifting for longevity and power. So for men, the reps are a little higher. They're 6 to 8. So that is the explanation of what everybody's a little confused about now, and the gym bros are crawling out of the woodwork.
And what the gym bros don't understand is the definition of power,
They
which
don't.
is strength over time.
Yes, yes. And I had one guy, I'm just griping right now. I had one guy say to me, although I looked him up and I'm like, you couldn't tell, but he's like, how long have you been under the iron or something? He was trying to challenge how long I've been in a gym. I'm like,
Under
I don't
the
know.
iron.
What does it matter, really? But what is so fun about this whole thing, and I'm just going off on a tangent right now, is that, boy, oh boy, my community stood up for me. And they were like, you cannot be level with her in terms of expertise, education, experience, blah. And so it's nice that people have my back. It's nice that they listen enough to know what we're talking about and how to lift. But I think that one size doesn't fit all, and you have to know your goals. And so that's what I'm.
You say something very profound in your anecdotes, because you talked about men, you've talked about women, talked about differences. Let's talk about gender-specific medicine, because we've talked about the gift that you've given so many patients, treating them like the whole patient. But then you laser in and fine-tune it for the gender, and...
Well, I think the reason for that is, there was that funny book years and years ago about relationships called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Sure.
Well, in my own labs at the university in Pittsburgh, we showed that not only does that hold true in relationships, it holds true down to the cellular level. So in my lab, the lab that I trained in, and then my own lab, we worked with a stem cell that we derived from muscle. At the time, we called them muscle-derived stem cells. They're more mature stem cells than embryonic. There are a few
Stages down the road,
stages
yeah.
down the road, but they're still pluripotent, meaning they can become anything. A muscle-derived stem cell with the proper stimulation can still become cartilage and bone, better muscle, tendon, ligament.
Not just muscle.
Not just muscle, because above them, they're all from the same origin stem cell, the mesenchymal stem cell. So anyway, we took these muscle stem cells and we said, hey, are there differences in what muscle stem cells, or they're called satellite cells now, satellite cells from an XX person, a female person, versus an XY person, a male person, does under stimulation, down to the stem cell level. Stem cells respond differently depending on their genetic origin. So when we say men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or now the new term is women are not just little men, we're a completely different species, down to the cellular level, because our XY stem cells, male stem cells, make bone better when you stimulate them with certain growth factors. XX muscle-derived stem cells made cartilage better and muscle better under the same stimulation. It just shows that we can't treat everybody generically. But until 1993, Marty, which was not that long ago in our history, we were alive then, right?
We were alive. Working already.
Women were not mandated to be in research. Research is expensive. And so to cut costs, most of the foundational research was done in men, often 40-year-old white men. And that work was then just applied to every race
And every
and
gender.
every
Both genders, yeah.
gender. So there is a huge, an almost seemingly insurmountable health gap, health research gap between men and women. If you look at the amount of money spent, women are 51% of the world's population. In the United States, if there are $4.5 billion spent on research, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions spent on female research, so 10 times less. 4.5 spent on research for women over 40. You can't even fathom how little work has been done. So when midlife women now, powerful women, are clamoring for answers, like, why don't we have an answer? It's because until 1993, researchers are not required to enter women in their studies.
Still so many more questions and so much needed to be learned.
Hundreds of years of work.
My God.
Yeah.
And you are changing that and you are bringing that to the forefront. Let's talk about the aging athlete and longevity in general,
Sure.
because you truly have dedicated your life to using science to debunk these myths that we all grow up with.
Yeah.
You know, and lifting heavy shit, no matter how old you are. And I remember when you talked about the master athlete or the aging athlete, I know emotionally, mentally, because they were my patients, and they just wanted to stay in the game, and they were clawing. I'm not going to be told I can't do this. And when I saw you with this, the concept of creating protocols and creating, ways to treat them, ways to look at them differently, the whole person again, I thought that was groundbreaking, maybe before anyone else did. You know, the concept of the master aging athlete. And then you started applying that to almost everyone, which I also love.
I think the way that I treat people as a whole person comes from two places. Number one, from the fact I was a cancer nurse and at a very young age I truly understood that sickness is a whole person thing. It's a whole network. It affects the whole family. So from that, but honestly, when I treat an everyday athlete or somebody who's not even an athlete as a whole person, Marty, that's the way we treat our pro athletes. I am an elite sports doctor. I treat college and pro athletes. When I design a program of sports medicine, whether it was at Pitt or it was in Georgia, it is a team of consultants. There is a leader,
Sure.
but there is a team of consultants. And for instance, when my last job at University of Pittsburgh was the medical director that built the UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex, which housed the Penguins.
Yeah.
It housed our medical practice. It housed everything, right? Anybody should go see it if they're in Pittsburgh.
I mean, that was an absolute diamond.
It is a diamond. It still is. But those pro athletes, the Penguins, everything about their lives is taken care of. There's a full-time chef. There's a full-time manager who just happens to be my son, who arranges everything about all parts of their life. You would never tell a pro athlete, oh, go find yourself a therapist. I would say, you must go see Marty at 10 o'clock. That kind of whole person 360, connect the dots. We care about your family. I mean, I prescribe for the players' wives. We care about their families. We care about what they eat. We care about their mental well-being. We care about whether they're sleeping enough. One day, I'm in my office and my secretary tells me, Dr. Wright, a bed just arrived. What do you want me to do with it? I'm like, I didn't order a bed. But come to find out,
An actual bed.
It maintained a cold temperature with some kind of special sleep bed because it was the beginning of caring about recovery for athletes. And so when I say to you, in the elite and pro levels, we care about everything. Then why can't mere mortal athletes or everyday people enjoy the same kind of 360 care? It's the only way I know how to care for people.
And you've given those tools to empower someone, even sometimes just, where to go, where to start.
Mm-hmm.
You always talk about being realistic. If you didn't work out 3 times a week last week, right? You're not going to do it this week. But if you did once, that's 100% better than last week, right? You do once for a couple of weeks and maybe you might like it, and maybe do twice, right? It's all about being realistic. And the science of longevity, the science of active aging, we talk about if you're not moving, you're dying, right?
True. Yeah, true.
And let's talk a little bit about that, about the concept of aging actively and what we can do to fight back Father Time with basic day-to-day changes.
Marty, it's not rocket science. I think in the new era of biohacking,
Yeah.
or even the longevity world, both of these worlds I'm deep into, I think people are led to believe that it has to be complicated, or you need a red light sauna, or you're never going to age well, or you need to immerse yourself in freezing. All these additive things, those that have science, I mean, they are additive, right?
Sure.
But what I find is that when people enter the precision longevity program and they want to skip ahead all the way to the weird longevity, unproven rat study things like rapamycin and BPC 157. Now I'm going to get a lot of hate mail because people love those things. Fine, we can do those things.
That's right.
But I insist that we start in taking your health, which is fine, and to optimal. Can we please optimize your health? Get all your labs going. Start you on an aerobic program based on your own heart rate. Can we measure your VO2 max to see if you're ever going to cross the fragility line where you can't get up from a chair? Can we optimize your health? Okay, if we do that, then can we please help you even understand what an anti-inflammatory nutrition is and what enough protein means? Can we help you not have 3 different food services delivering boxes of food to your house because no one in your house is going to eat the same thing, right? Can we? I mean, these are real stories. Can we optimize you? And then once
Problems.
they're real problems.
Yeah.
And then once optimized, okay, then I'm going to treat you like the pro athletes that I care for in my entire career, and we're going to squeeze performance out of you. I mean, you brought me someone who wanted to squeeze performance out of his life because he had a huge goal. He had a big birthday coming up. He had a huge goal. It wasn't that he was not in shape. He was one of the people that was already optimized, and he just wanted to squeeze performance. So after we optimize, we squeeze performance, and only then, Marty, in my program, do we go to the really esoteric longevity things that may or may not have any research associated, that are evidence-informed, not evidence-based. Because it's okay to me that we get to that place, but not if our health is just fine.
The Precision Longevity Program, I just think is just groundbreaking. You, with the lab, just at the foundational, when you look at someone's labs, you get the opportunity to connect the dots for them. Because whether it's cholesterol, inflammatory biomarkers, NAD, we'll talk about that in a bit, and then you connect it to their daily life. Well, this is why you have elevated inflammatory biomarker. This is why your cholesterol. This is why after we test your VO2 or now you know.
You know what I think is so interesting about that and what you're saying is that our bodies are talking to us all the time. Our bodies are total loudmouths. They want you to know. They give you evidence through your blood values or how you're feeling that day or how swollen or puffy you're feeling. They give you clues. Your body gives you clues about its internal working. The problem is most of us are completely deaf, or if we hear it, we're not listening, right? We drowned it out. So part of what we do is just help people listen to their bodies.
It's funny. They'll complain about being puffy or feeling swollen, but when they actually feel good, they don't then stop and think, what did I do yesterday? Did I sleep more? Did I drink more water?
But you know what? That's why we can't get 70% of people in the country to invest every day in their mobility, because they feel fine and they can't envision what it's going to be like when they're 70. So one of my big, I don't even know what to call it. What I tried to do is help people do exactly what you say, recognize that they feel great today and they want to feel great again tomorrow. So what did they do today?
Yeah.
You know, I feel great. I don't feel great at the time. I'll be totally transparent. I hate working out. And I only love working out when I'm done. But then I feel like such a badass and strong, and I get the reward of whatever that reward, or for me, a reward is marking it off my calendar. I'm a very visual person.
Sure.
But it's the helping people recognize how amazing they feel today so that they want to feel that way tomorrow. That is true. Well, that's what leads to discipline in doing it, because motivation is passive, but discipline is what keeps us on track.
Hey, James, what are those? Well, these are Apos. They have helped me and over 150,000 other people with chronic knee pain and low back pain.
My back's been killing me.
You know I've been a sports physical therapist for over 30 years, and Apos works. It's non-invasive, drug-free, and effective. It treats the cause, not just the pain. Apos, precisely what you need.
You know, I've told this story before that the mindset, unfortunately, in the United States is, I remember when I got my license for the first time, right? And I borrowed my family's car. And then I got pulled over.
You did?
Early into my life of having a license. The first thing that came to my mind as the nice police officer drove away is, holy shit, my parents' points, the insurance is gonna go up, right? Worried about that, I'm gonna get my ass kicked, insurance is gonna go up. Just imagine if we had that mindset after a bad blood panel. If we said, oh man, my cholesterol's through the roof. You know, my glucose, everything, I'm pre-diabetic, my health insurance is gonna go up, right? Imagine that, right? It's fascinating. Okay, let's talk a little bit about something that I know some of my friends and wanted me to ask you. Let's talk about NAD, because I remember in high school biology, I took AP Bio in high school, and I remember that my teacher saying, Mrs. Backer had a lazy eye. I loved her though. It was very smart. She had a lazy eye, and I was the guy always raising his hand, right? But her eye looked somewhere else. So I thought, okay, she pointed at me, and I mean, because her eye was.
Marty,
But
I don't know if this is an okay story.
It's a fantastic story. But she was so passionate. She was so passionate.
Yeah.
And you know what she was passionate about? The cell.
Yeah.
She was passionate about the cell. And most of us in this particular class thought about pre-med and medical school and all that stuff and healthcare professions. And she says, you don't know this now, but everywhere you go for the rest of your careers, it all goes back to the cell. And that stayed with me, you know? And then when I started working with you and getting to know everything that we're looking for and the science behind it all, there we are again, back to the cell. Mitochondria, NAD, ATP, all these. And then NAD, unfortunately, it's too much misinformation out there as well, like anything else, right? But let's talk.
But it's hot right now,
It's
right?
hot.
Everybody wants to talk about it. I should talk about it more.
It's unfortunately given the moniker of, you know, the fountain of youth, but I'll leave it there because at least it's science. You know, at least it's not a supplement that we have no research about. We know what NAD. I studied the Krebs cycle, right? And lots of lost hours of sleep studying that Krebs cycle where we make ATP and NAD replenishing, all that, right? But here we are still talking about the Krebs cycle.
I'm just geeky like that. It's okay.
I know. I saw you light up when I said Krebs cycle. Let's talk about NAD. What is it? What do our viewers have to know about it? What can we do about it?
Well, just a few things, right? So NAD plus is a coenzyme in our body, which means a helper in 400 of the chemical reactions that 400. It's very important. NAD plus. And so our body makes it. It can be made out of B vitamins like NMN and MR. And when we're young, we have intracellular levels. We need to know what's inside our cells to be used in these reactions.
So 400 processes in the body.
Yeah, it's a coenzyme in 400 of the reactions that make us work, right? So when we're young, we have an intracellular level of between 40 and 60. And then as we age, that goes down. And so what happens is we feel less metabolically energetic. And when my NAD plus was low,
Mine was as well.
yes, yours was very low. Mine was 18. It was absurdly low. I was exhausted every day by the afternoon. I had just hit a wall. So then you can supplement and your body will make more NAD. Now, here's the thing. People all over the place are getting NAD IVs.
Sure.
Your body must make its own NAD plus. So you must supplement with either NMN, which is the immediate precursor. Your body will then in one reaction make NAD plus.
Precursor would be the building block.
The building block.
Yeah.
One reaction, it turns into NAD plus. Or you can also supplement with NR, both of which are in the B vitamin category, to make your own NAD plus. So I hate that everybody's wasting their money on NAD IVs, because the reason I say that so profoundly is because we work with a scientist. You've met him, Dr. Shi,
Sure.
who has an assay for measuring cellular NAD plus. And after an IV, you get no bump versus when your body makes it itself. And that's the whole point, right? And so it's a hot topic now. But again, let's return to the basics. Unless you have optimized the other areas of your health, you cannot ignore the basics and then just skip to only supplementing NAD plus. You need everything else, and that as an adjunct.
You need it all, just like the whole body. And just like we treat our professional athletes, we give them all because we know it all helps. Whether it's just physical therapy or just nutrition or whether it's just sleep. It's so important. Sometimes we don't even care what helps, but we know all of it. We know all of it well. Vonda, you are, after all these years, we talked about breaking down barriers. We talked about your passions, longevity, aging, women's health. We talked about the foundation of the strong women in your life. We talked about your family. It's an incredible family, an amazing, amazing daughter. And now you are a brand. Vonda Wright, MD, is a brand.
Think so?
I know so. And I hope you think so too. And I think you do, and you've earned it. And, that young student that decided, okay, I'll go to med school.
What else do I have to do?
I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this better than anyone. Let's do this.
Yeah.
How do we get from passion for day-to-day work, day-to-day, career, to you are now a global voice in such important topics to so many millions? Like I said, longevity, women's health, the science of active aging. How do we get to being a global voice? How do we get to being a brand? And you may not have had a playbook, but now it's in your lap now, right? It's like, you have to be able to reflect a little bit.
Oh, I can teach somebody to do this. In fact, would you like me to know?
I'm taking notes, young lady. I'm taking notes.
Yeah. I mean, so how did I amplify my voice? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So I knew from the very beginning that if I saw, I'm making these numbers up, 100 people in a clinic, in my clinics in a week and the surgeries, that I could probably reach 5,000 people a year in my orthopedic practice. But I knew the minute that I wrote a book, which then would put me on national television, that every single show I went on, 5.5 million people, which is what Dr. Oz is. That's where I get that number. Viewing audience.
I think you're on that 20-something times?
A lot. The doctors and Dr. Oz and the morning shows. But every time, the amplification of good science, of great advice, of not hoarding or gatekeeping the information that I had gathered over 22 years of formal education, I realized not everybody's going to be able to do that. I realized that not everybody is capable nor wants to sift through the literature. So in communicating with the public in a consumer way, I have taken down the barriers. I have removed the gatekeeping. And you know what, Marty, we've talked about it. I got a lot of trouble in my academic career because I'm an academic surgeon in the ivoryest of ivory towers, and they did not like that public-facing me. But I stuck true to my belief that if I hoarded the information, I was helping a very limited number of people. But by being on TV, by writing books, we used to do satellite radio tours to get the word out. Now we do podcasts,
Yeah.
right? I would be educating millions of people, and that's what I am doing. And so I get DMs and letters and emails. People somehow find my address and send me notes that the communication of this information is transforming their lives. And that's flattering, but it also compels me not to stop, because on a day-to-day basis, I see the person in the ER who cannot believe they've gotten this frail. And I know that I have the opportunity by communicating with the masses to prevent that from happening to more people. And that's work worth doing.
That's so beautiful and profound, because, you know, we've worked these crazy hours for decades now, and, you know, countless patients. But when that one person grabs your hand, thanks you, it's, yeah, this is why we do what we do, right?
And then we all hug.
We all hug it out. Exactly right.
So before we end, I want to tell people the best thing you've ever done for me, because you told people, no, listen, you've told people we've known each other for 20 years, since we were youngsters. I wasn't a youngster then, but I was younger than I am now.
Almost 25.
Yeah. You've also told people you've been raised by 4 women, and I think that makes you a different kind of man. You're still a manly man, Marty, but it makes you, but you have one of the highest DQs that I have ever seen, right? You just know people, on top of the fact that you work one-on-one with people. So the best thing that you ever did for me, which I openly tell my husband is the best gift I've ever gotten, is I was a single mother, and I had a little girl, and you had invited me. She was a baby, like a baby.
Baby.
And you convinced me to come to New York and spend a weekend with your staff. You had a big staff at the time, and we were doing education. And so I came, and we had great education sessions. And then
It was great.
a snowstorm hit New York, and
Yeah.
all of the airports closed down. And we were out to dinner after the educational sessions, and you were educating me about all the hootenanny things going on in this restaurant in New York that I'd never seen before.
The
Like,
art
you
of dining.
Yeah, you could see how worried I was that I probably was not going to get home until Monday or Tuesday. And I had this baby who probably was still breastfeeding. You're
panicked. The look
I
of
was
panic
panicked.
on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm a single mother. She was with her grandparents, and you called your driver. I don't know what he was doing, but in 15 minutes, your driver was there, and he drove me all the way back from New York to Pittsburgh. And we drove through the night, and by the next morning, I was home
With your baby.
with my baby. And that takes an unbelievable amount of sensitivity and emotional intelligence to know that I had to get home. I would have walked home. That is the
I
best
would have
gift
walked there with you.
that I've ever been given. And I'm so thankful for you for doing that.
God bless you. Because guess what? That daughter,
She's amazing.
magical.
Brilliant.
Absolutely magical. Woof. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for
So-
that. Wow. Okay. Yes, that was a special day, because it was nice to see you just at peace again the next morning when we talked. And okay, I'm with my baby now. I'm good. I'm good. Okay, so now one of our favorite segments, it's called Moving the Chains, and it's brought to us by NOBULL, footwear brand designed to helping us achieve, all our goals with both physical strength, mental strength, and emotional strength.
Okay.
Footwear from training, daily life, amazing company. And we talk about moving and change. Why? Because as you know, in football, that first down, the moving the change is a small win. It's a small win. You get enough small wins in football, you're having a great day.
God, I'd rather be a wide receiver than a linebacker, though, right?
That's the
I just got the ball and
most unprotected position in football.
Sorry. I've been on a lot of football fields.
Exactly. These football comparisons are just endless. But, we talk about these small wins, and we talk about your patients and the people that you inspire all over the world. They need more small wins. Because if we add enough small wins, we're having a good day. We're having a good week, good few maybe last years. So what are some of your non-negotiables that you do every day to move the chains forward, to move your day forward?
That's good. So I think ritual is important in life. So a ritualistic behavior I do is rain, shine, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I am up every morning at 5 a.m. I could sleep on the weekends in, but I timestamp 5 a.m. And when I get up, I don't immediately go to work. I let the dog out. I brew a cup of coffee. I sit down. My husband gets up at the same time. And we have at least an hour just to be together, to talk, to set the day, to talk about what we're doing. And it's a ritual that if I didn't have it, it would be a frenzy. I would forget things. It wouldn't set the mood for the day. So that's a ritual I have that is really important because I spend my day hearing what other people need. It's my job. And so being able to be settled in that ritual in the morning is actually critical to set me up.
Sounds like it's almost meditative and contemplative.
The house is quiet, right? Nothing's going on. It's just sipping coffee, it's a ritual.
It sets a foundation for no matter what the day is going to bring.
It's not profound. Sorry, it's not profound. But
well, actually, meditation and contemplation and reflection is often ignored because it is profound. And someone's inability to get there sometimes is, right? That's why I think it is very profound. Okay, people, give me 2 minutes on the clock. In our 2 minutes.
2 minutes is a long time in football.
It is.
The whole course of life can change in 2
Tom
minutes.
Tom Brady's had quite the career in the last 2 minutes of every game. And he's kind of an inspiration for this. But we're going to talk about 30,000-foot questions. Those questions that are going to just make you reflect just a little bit. If you had the privilege of sitting with 18-year-old Vonda, what would you tell her?
Don't give a fuck.
That's fucking great.
You know what? I think the best part of being midlife, the age I am, I'm closer to 60 than any other number, right? Being this age, and I may have come to this late, but I think this is the most authentic. Like what you see is what I am. It's what I've always been, but I am one of the people who I learned about Native American culture because I was married to a Native American, right? Or I would learn about the things the people I was surrounded by. But at this age, it is the most authentic. I'll learn about something because I want to, not because I'm associated with someone.
Yeah.
The most authentic, the most indefinable, don't tell me how I'm supposed to be at this age. I'm going to define for you how I am experiencing this. I will tell you that I'm going to go do a Spartan race. Some guy introduced, I was giving a keynote and he said, and Vonda, at the ripe old age of 58, did her first Spartan race. And I'm walking on stage to give this keynote. And all I could think about is, did he think I wouldn't be able to do it at 58? What is about being 58 that would make me so indefinable, authentic, indefinable, and ageless? I don't even know what age means. I know what capacity means. I know what being able to do what I want, when I want it means. And until I'm 97 or whatever age I decide it's enough, that's what I want, right? So that's what I mean by...
And you want to tell her at 18 years old, just don't give a fuck because...
Right, don't care so much about whatever anybody else wants.
And just show up.
Yeah.
We started our conversation about the strong women in your life that raised you, your mother, your grandmother especially. Do you realize you're the embodiment of them? And now your daughter has that, the same gift that you have. Have you ever thought that she has it now too? She has that same gift.
Isabella Wright is smarter than I am. She does not realize her capacity yet. So I'm excited to see her, what she becomes. I mean, she has been wise since she was born. The minute she was born, she's been wise the same. So I'm just excited to see what she becomes. But you know what? I'm blessed. We're in a blended family. Peter, my husband, and I have 6 children together. And I am blessed because not only is Isabella a force of nature, but her older sister, Corey, is a force of nature. Corey is the youngest, but she is the leader of that part of the family. So I'm blessed, even in my daughters, to be surrounded by strong women, and the men and the women that my sons have chosen to marry. Oh my gosh, they fit right in because they're just like us.
And the blended family essentially is that exponential.
Well, because they've chosen women that are forces of nature. So
that is simply amazing.
Yeah.
And I, as knowing Isabella, I am so excited for her.
Yeah, me too.
And I think not only will she reach her potential, she doesn't know really.
That's what I mean. What I say, I don't know. I don't know what her capacity is yet, but I'm excited to see it.
And I know you've nurtured all of her different passions.
Yeah.
What makes you laugh?
You make me laugh. Stupid jokes make me laugh. You know, I'm not that complex. That's not true. But I'm not. Australian humor makes me laugh. I just got back from Australia. They are the most amazing, funny people.
That's great.
I love those people.
That was your first time there?
Group. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, they love life, right?
They do. They just live a great way.
They know it's important. It's important to laugh.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have laughed, and of course you made me cry, but I can't thank you enough. Today was a special, special day indeed. I love the fact that you spend a lifetime helping others and giving them the resource, the information they need to change their lives. And I love the fact that I've had the honor to get to talk about just you. And we wanted to make it all about you.
Thank you.
And it's an honor.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for changing the game.